Welcome to the Hacking Your Health podcast with Ben Canning and Dave Kennedy. Two guys heading out to hack body, mind, business, and beyond. We are here to provide a single source, bullshit-free guide to understanding your body and how you can live better for longer.
Listeners, I just want to say a special thanks to everybody that is listening to this podcast. If you're enjoying what we're doing, please share us. We're all over at We Hack Health on Twitter, Discord, Instagram, you name it, pretty much everywhere. But your support, your sharing of your experiences, this community is what drives us, what drives this podcast, and what allows us to be able to do this every single week for you. So if you're enjoying what we're doing, please share us out there. The more people we have to impact, the more people we have to help. That's our mission. That's our goal. And that's the whole thing about hacking your health. Thanks, everybody.
Yo, what's up, everybody? Welcome back. I'm Ben Canning.
I'm Dave Kennedy.
And this is Hacking Your Health Podcast.
It is Hacking Your Health Podcast.
It is. What's up, Dave?
Not much, man. It's been a long week. I know we just started the week on Monday, but
it's Monday.
It's Monday, and it's been a long week already. I had a trip to California, and I took the red eye back. And with kids sports, so like May is the worst because it's the end of basketball season. It's the end of volleyball season, but it starts softball, baseball, and AAU basketball. So like it was just a divide and conquer this weekend between Aaron and I. It was like Friday I get home and I have to take my kid to a baseball game while I take my other kid to basketball, pick my kid up from baseball, then go get basketball. And then Saturday was the exact same thing, but it was all day long in tournaments that were like 45 minutes away. And then Sunday was basketball, finishing up the basketball tournament. But cooked some awesome food for my mom and my wife and for Mother's Day. And it was overall really good. But definitely came into Monday feeling extremely tired and exhausted.
Needed a weekend before you started the week?
And I actually skipped lifting Saturday and Sunday. I did. I told you this. I sent you a text message about what I was doing. I told you.
It's not you've told me, but it's the fact that you have made the decision to do that. Do you know what I mean? It's like serious shit has hit the fan somewhere. Like if you've made that decision by yourself.
Well, there's a story behind that and why. Because I got 2 more pieces of gym equipment, and one of them was like 850 pounds, and instead of calling a friend, I did say if you wait for 2 weeks, I will help you. I will be there. Yeah, and I ignored that completely.
Yeah, LOL.
I mean 2 weeks.
LOL.
2 weeks, yeah. Lol. But I got this 850 pound hack squat leg press. Which, by the way, why does it need to be that heavy? There's no reason for it to be that.
Yeah, you're meant to put the weights on it.
Yeah, exactly.
Why is it already heavy?
Lighter, and then, but I ended up getting it like around the back because I have to go down this hill to get it downstairs to where the gym's at. And I go around the back and I'm using like a dolly and I have to like rock it to get it back because it's so heavy on this dolly. I think the dolly's only weighted, like supposed to be like 400 pounds on it, but it handled 850, I guess. But I finally get it downstairs and through the doors, the one side of doors, and then I have to get through these other side of doors and it didn't fit. So I had to tear up the whole wall, the trim, to get this dang thing in there. It took me 3.5 hours and I couldn't do anything else. Like my bones hurt, my body hurt. It was the best. Actually, honestly, it was the best full body workout I think I've ever done in my entire life. So,
well, good. So I'm looking forward to using it. And hopefully, it was worthwhile. More importantly, before we get into things, you said that you cooked the best steak that you've ever had. So, I mean, I feel like people listening want to know how to cook good steaks. So, tell us.
For all the vegetarians there, close your ears for a few minutes. But no, I've been doing sous vide steaks for a number of years, and it's always hit or miss on how well it's going to turn out. But the steak itself will always turn out phenomenal in sous vide. Like it's just awesome. You can properly cook it. And if those that don't know what a sous vide is, it's water cooking. Basically, you take your steaks, you throw them in a bunch of bags, and you throw them into water, and it cooks them exactly to the temperature that's needed for medium rare. Well done, whatever you want to do. And Erin likes well done steaks. Unfortunately, I know. I still married her, But she likes well done steaks. But what's amazing about it is it doesn't dry it out at all. The steak comes out perfectly well done. And it's still, juicy and everything else that comes along with it. It keeps all of the absorption of the moisture and everything inside. So with this one though, I've been researching a little bit on kind of keeping a good flavor throughout the whole meat. And so what I did is, I set the meat out for about an hour, and I covered it. I hit it with a bunch of forks. So put a bunch of. I think you're the one that told me about that. Actually, was it you?
No, I'm not. I wish I could. I wish I could take credit, but I'll not.
My friend Jason, his brother is like a world famous cook or something like that, or chef. So I started taking fork, and you fork the heck out of the meat basically, and then you do your rub, which is I just do salt and pepper, and a little bit of garlic powder, and I kind of pack it in and make sure it's fully covered in that, and then you put it into the bag, which I did cooked garlic to give a little bit of garlic flavor to it, and then I throw some olive oil in it and some thyme leaves to give it a little bit of flavor, and I kind of put that all together into a bag with olive oil, and then I throw it into the sous vide, which usually takes about 2 to 3 hours, depending on how long what you're trying to cook. So medium rare, it's about 3 hours to cook. Even well done, 3 hours to cook. It just takes some time to get to those certain temperatures to actually boil. So I have like 2 pots that I'm basically cooking in, and then once I got it out, I made a mixture of melted butter, smoked salt, which you can get like campfire salt. It's like basically salt that they burn a bunch of wood, and it kind of takes the flavors of the wood. It's actually like a dark black type of color to it, and mixed that with that and some garlic powder, and I dipped the steak into those, and then I reverse sear them on the grill itself, and then what's in it, whatever's excess of the extra butter and everything else that I had, I pour on top of all the steaks. So it turned out absolutely phenomenal. One of the best steaks that I've ever made. I heard, by the way, that where the new jam or new hotness is putting mayonnaise on it before you sear it. I guess that's a thing. Like, I guess it creates an amazing profile of flavor of. I know it doesn't sound good, but I'm going to try it. I actually got 2 steaks sitting in 2 extra steaks sitting in the fridge. So I was contemplating doing it tonight.
I feel like it's like one of those. I've seen like these chefs on Instagram, or whatever, where they do like tests, and they have like 10 different things. It's like one's ketchup, one's mustard, and they like completely pack it in. But I mean, I'll let you test it out, and then I'm more than happy to try whenever I'm over there next week or the week after.
Yeah, let's just do ketchup. Let's do ketchup. Let's do like gravy. Let's try.
We'll do steaks every meal.
Yeah, sounds good to me. Steak. We'll have steak for breakfast, lunch, and dinner.
Ideal. Absolutely perfect.
Yeah. How about you? How are you doing?
How am I doing? I'm doing good. I had a busy weekend of actual just work, which has been cool. Obviously, given the fact that I guess by the time everybody's listened to this, the virtual doors have been closed. But since I put that out, it's just been crazy busy with people on calls and catching up with everybody. And I want to sort of get everybody set up and good to go before I travel, which is on Friday. So I literally just worked all weekend. So I also feel like when I woke up this morning that I needed a weekend in between starting work week. But it's been really good. A very productive, feel like I'm sort of not ahead, but definitely at least close to caught up. And then today I had check-in call. We had Sean on the call to just go into a little bit more in depth of the 555 Club, because a lot of people, I took it for granted that everybody would know what that is. And people who have sort of joined since the last time that he was on the call, I just assumed. So I was like, we'll get him back on the call, reintroduce him to everybody, and then talk about some stuff he's doing and some stuff that he has going on. Check-ins. Got my blood work done today, so hopefully the next time we record a podcast, I'll maybe have the results, because for anybody who actually listens more than once, about 10 or 11 weeks ago, I got blood work done and it wasn't optimal, let's say. So it'll be interesting to see what the feedback is on that. Training plan is going good. It's a funny setup. So like today was lower body and pull. So it's just a strange setup to get used to, but I'm enjoying it. The sessions are short, intense, in and out, like silly sets, like overhead tricep extension, rest pause set, 40 reps, like fucking 40 reps. Wow. So again, back to what I said last week, if you feel like you can't feel a muscle group, just do 40 reps and you absolutely will definitely feel. But other than that, dude, I'm just getting ready to go on Friday. Everything's good. Dealing with a little bit of customs issues, let's say, but aside from that, everything's good and ready to rock.
That's awesome. Yeah, I'm looking forward to the trip next week. I think it's going to be a ton of fun, and obviously, hanging out with you afterwards is going to be great. So I'm all excited. I can't wait.
Did you get your shit shirt? People
I
about
got
this.
my shit shirt.
Okay.
Yeah, I sent you the link there. Yeah, it's good. It's good. I thought mine was pretty good. I spent some time on that.
Yeah, me too. Mine arrived after me. I texted you last night. I did order that other one that I sent you just in case.
Okay. Yeah.
So we're good to go.
Awesome. Well, today's podcast, there's a few things I wanted to hit on, I think, that are important to discuss. One, I thought it was really interesting around red light therapy. And, I've always seen, all of these things that come out, like you have these devices that you put on your head that, is like a red light laser, and it's supposed to stimulate hair growth. And, you see all these like weird contractions and you're like, oh, that's total bullshit. Right. And interesting enough, red light therapy with lasers has actually been shown in women's studies, at least, to regrow hair. Has not in men, but I think they're actually working on that now. But what's interesting is there was a study done back in 2018, but there's been a lot more studies done since then on what we call red light therapy. And it was interesting. I was doing red light therapy a bit when I was going to that Restore place that we went to that would do like, infusions, and you could do cryotherapy and things like that. They had red light there. And I'm like, I did it a few times because it sounded cool, but I'm like, what is this bullshit? It's like totally sorcery. It's like going to a chiropractor and you crack your back and you're like, that did not do anything for me other than crack my back. Like, yeah, I don't believe in this. Right. And obviously I'm chiropractor is probably legit. I don't know. I just don't know all that stuff about it. But what does appear to be correct is that red light does have a major impact on endurance, performance, and recovery, and a pretty amazing rate at that. There's a double-blind placebo study that was done in 2018, which is basically like the best you can get when it comes to research, and it showed that basically doing red light therapy prior to working out, whether that was cardiovascular or resistance training, increased your oxygen uptake. It decreased your time to exhaustion. Increase your time to exhaustion, which means, you get exhausted less fast. So you can keep going on, especially in cardio for much longer, as well as resistance training. And recovery improvement increased as well. The endurance gains that you received from those that weren't doing it. So if you take double-blind placebo studies, ones that were getting a placebo, that i.e. were not getting red light therapy, versus those that were getting red light therapy, the ones that got red light therapy, their endurance and recovery increased 3 times faster than those that didn't. 3 times faster.
So to delve a bit deeper in terms of like me thinking about myself, if I go and do one red light therapy session, am I good to go? Or like, do you need to do it like gradually? Like, do you build up?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So it's ongoing and continual, but when you're doing it, you will start to see the benefits of it almost immediately. It's one of those things where your body basically recognizes it, absorbs it, uses it, and is able to take that and obviously I of course purchased red light.
I've just Googled. I literally have just Googled. I'm like, okay, where can I get one of these things?
It's actually pretty incredible. They've also, and again, this is when you look at the stuff, you also want to say like, well, how prolific are some of these things, and that study is important, but there's also ones that have come out that it's good at treating acne, reduction of inflammation, decreases healing time, stimulating hair growth, general skin rejuvenation has been shown directly. So it's one of those things where it does appear to have some really good benefits that you could use to increase performance, recovery, endurance. I've been using a sauna, obviously, and in my sauna, I have the red light lights as well. Now, when you go into some of the research, there is specific frequency ranges that these lights have to adhere to. So when you're going through to your research, I believe it's 360 to 370 is the frequency ranges that are most used for the studies that have shown actual benefits. But it's pretty awesome. I mean, it's something that I really haven't practiced much of. I always thought it was kind of sorcery and witchery, but based on a lot of the studies, something that I'm very interested in kind of exploring and seeing how it actually increases my performance, and obviously I should start seeing it. I do cardio HIIT training twice a week and the lifting 5 days a week. So
you're going to see it in how many different machines at Orange Theory get broken.
Break. I was saying, I'm going to break the treadmill next. That's my next goal. So I've already been doing 50.
So I have pulled some up here, right? So we're talking about red light therapy. Like, how can this be useful to me? So like, there's different ones here. Do I need it just on my face? Do I need my whole body? Like, what's the protocol?
The more coverage that you have over your body during that period of time.
Right. So if anybody sees on the podcast in a couple of weeks, the entire room is red, you know what's happened. I will say, so my confession, just talking about cardio.
Yeah.
I'm going to say this. 2 things, actually. Number one, I haven't been watching food videos whenever I'm doing cardio.
You have not been?
I have not been, no.
Wow. What's going on?
I don't know. I think maybe I'm going to say maybe it's a phase thing. So like, last time it's food videos, this time's maybe something different. So I've been watching a lot of Alex Hormozi podcasts and different stuff from him. So I am watching something, but just not food videos. The second thing is I'm actually, and I think I maybe said this the last time too, and anybody who has listened, please tell me if I did. I'm actually enjoying doing cardio on the bike. And like, it used to be 20 minutes was my max. And I'm counting down. I'm like, I can't fucking wait for this 20 minutes to be over. But today I was like, I'll go for half an hour, and I've been in 30 minutes. So I'm going to say new me, maybe. What happens if and maybe this is a bit, I don't know, but what happens if I'm doing my cardio and I have the red light set up while I'm doing cardio? Is that 2 birds with 1 stone?
Well, so the way that this actually works, like what is actually happening during these periods of time is that the red light is actually hitting your cells, okay? And it's hitting a part of your cells, which basically is in charge of what we call ATP. It's essentially your energy production in your body and your cells. And it's specifically hitting what's called the mitochondria, which is what the cells use for more energy. So when you're using red light therapy, the mitochondria is essentially energized with the red light, allowing it to produce more additional energy through the ATP process. And ATP is actually a big it's how we produce energy in our bodies, and there's several factors that could be leading towards ATP. So as we get older, there's been a lot of research on NAD, which is a precursor to what is used for ATP. I do NAD supplementation. There's a lot of good longevity studies on that, but this one specifically with red lights, you basically use it and you get the immediate benefits of it as you start to use it immediately. So going into red light prior to a workout. And what's actually interesting is I started looking at gyms around the country that support red light. And there's quite a few gyms now that actually have red light therapy rooms that you can go do prior to actually going and working out. So, it seems to be very beneficial when you first do red light therapy prior to an actual exercise or workout. Then from there, go in and actually conduct your workout itself. Looks like, again, time to fatigue is extended much longer. Your ability from an endurance perspective is increased, as well as, your ability to recover from, various types of strains like resistance training and things like that. There's also been studies, again, that have shown that it's considerably safe, by the way, but reduce muscle pain and joint pain, also improve skin conditions as well as acne. So those have been scientific studies that have actually been shown. So, it has a lot of different types of benefits that, I was very skeptical on at first. And we start diving into the research, I was like, wow, this is actually pretty decent. So again, something I'll be hitting up pretty hard as soon as it delivers. And I'll make sure I send pictures of me in this red light thing with my glasses on, trying to figure out what's going on. So
Even
generally 3 to 15 minutes is the general recommended time. 5 minutes being kind of the average that most folks use with it.
Okay, so if you see the whole room here red, you know what's going on. But even, like, obviously I'm on the site and they're selling them, but everything you're saying, acne, oral health, better for sleep, better for testosterone levels, muscle recovery, fat loss, joint pain, skin health. Like, I'm in.
Sounds
I'm in.
awesome.
I'm in for the red light therapy. Sign me up.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So there was a study on its impact to potentially fat loss due to the increased energy production, ATP, thus increasing your total daily energy expenditure or calorie intake. Again, makes sense mechanically. It's just a matter of, how much effect does it actually have? I'd be interested to see, the differences in my resistance training programs as well as cardiovascular. I got to figure out how, they're in 2 different locations. So like when I do my resistance training, that's easy. I can just put the panels there. I bought 2 full size body panels so I can get the front and back. But the more exposure, the better, right? But the part that's interesting is, obviously when I'm doing HIIT training, I have to go downstairs into the area, do like 5 minutes of that, and then come back out. So we'll see how that goes.
Let's get them like installed on the top of the truck, like when you're on the way.
That's a good idea. That's a good idea. Well, and Tesla, basically kind of can pretty much drive itself.
There's probably an app for that.
Yeah, I was going to say like the car drive itself while I'm in the back getting the red light. I'm just kidding, obviously.
I mean, it seems legit. I think this is something that, as with anything, I think that we talk about. Number one, whether you have the capacity to actually do it or try it out yourself. And number two, actually try it and see if you feel the benefits. Do you know what I mean? There's no point just us listening going, these studies are great. Oh, this is cool on the internet. It's going to do this, this, and this. Like, if it's something you have the capacity to trial out, it's one of those things that's going to be the 1% better, potentially more than 1%, but it's like finding those 1%.
Yep. So really quick, there's I'm going to hit two studies on the enhanced fat loss component, which is one older study on the journey of obesity surgery in 2011 found that, this is from Forbes, 40 adults with excessive weight were regularly exposed to red light therapy. Their cells released triglycerides, resulting in fat loss. Participants in this study lost approximately 2.1 centimeters of girth over a 4-week period. Another 2015 study of 64 women living with obesity published in Lasers in Surgery and Medicine found that red light therapy could increase fat loss when coupled with exercise. In the study, 2 groups worked out for 20 minutes 3 times per week and then received red light therapy or a placebo light therapy. Again, we want to see those placebo therapy studies. Those are the best. Those who worked out and then had red light therapy exhibited a greater reduction in fat mass, indicating that red light therapy may improve metabolic and flexibility. So really cool parts there. And then you see, potential implications of brain health. Sounds like it's, it fixes everything. I mean, just like you just do this and like you're jacked. Like that's like
we're not doctors. We're not saying to do that.
That's
and
it.
Yeah. Try it 1% better, that sort of stuff.
That's right. That was neat. Yeah.
Yeah, it does look legit though. I'm here for that.
Yeah, same here. And that was that's one piece. The second part and the main, I think, thing that we wanted to hit on today is the misconceptions of cardiovascular health versus resistance training. I think when you look at overall health in somebody, a balanced approach to everything is important. Whether that's in life, whether that's in business, whether that's in drinking alcohol, whether that's in what you're doing day-to-day life, right? A balance in moderation, I think, is extremely important. And our bodies work very much the same way. We have multiple systems that basically repair, heal, grow, increase strength, increase brain development. And as we age, those systems become less and less efficient as we get older, and we have tears or rips in our DNA and start to age as we do. And so if you look at that, we have to look at what's the most effective way for us to get to our desired results, whether we're 20 years old, whether we're 30, 40, 50, or 60 or above. And, when you look at what we're always taught, and I was just actually talking to a good friend that came here this weekend that I hadn't seen in a long time. And he was talking about how kind of how he had a new lease on life and was going to be focusing very much on his health, which is awesome to hear. And his first reaction was, I'm doing a ton of cardio. And I'm like, okay, like, let's talk through that. Like, how's the cardio going? He's like, oh man, it's going great. I do 1 million, I run a ton, I get steps in, doing all this. I'm like, okay, that's great. Like, what you doing for any type of like resistance training? He's like, oh, I'm not touching that. That's, I just want to be healthy. I'm like, okay, let's talk a little bit. Let's have a chat. But that's the misconception that I think a lot of folks have, which is, if you're healthy from a cardiovascular perspective, everything else is going to be fine. And the truth of the matter is that as we age, we lose bone density, we lose muscle mass. And as part of that, we die earlier. Muscle mass and bone density are 2 important factors for us in longevity and living longer. And muscle is kind of the cure-all for a lot of things and ailments that we have in life. There was a TED Talk that I saw that was basically talking about how muscle is the miracle drug for everybody. The more muscle you have, the more calories you burn, the more you can eat, the more things you can do, the more things you can lift, the longer that you can live. All of these things start to come true when you have muscle. And I was watching Mind Pump a few weeks ago, and they had one where they said, listen, if you're just starting off on this journey, and it's funny because it's exactly what you do, Ben, on this. Everybody expects as soon as they go with you, you're going to cut their calories in half and they're going to be doing cardio every single day. And the best approach, though, and what's been shown in studies, what's been shown all across the board, is to ensure you have enough calories, i.e., enough calories to develop muscle, go through resistance training to start to build that, and at least for 3 to 6 months, do solid resistance training, then work on getting the fat off. And that's really the approach that you need to look at. Is it's this balanced approach of surplus deficit maintenance, the ability to look at calories in versus calories out, the types of food you eat, but not being restrictive, on what you're eating, allow you to eat the favorite foods that you like to, just within, the confines of what we do. And we obviously talked a lot about it in the last podcast, but the stigma around not doing resistance training, especially for women, I think, there's a lot of stigma around women that if they lift, they're going to get huge. And that's not the case. Like, women's body types in general are not designed to get super muscular unless you start introducing testosterone and steroids and things of that effect to grow larger than their frames or builds are designed for. So, the muscular aspect, both for men and women, holds true across the board when you're looking at getting the desired results around sustainable weight loss or sustainable gain in some way, shape, or form. So weight training happens to be one of the most important things that you can do in this journey in health. And don't get me wrong, cardiovascular is just as important, but you don't actually need a ton of cardiovascular exercise to get those desired results. You need to focus more on resistance training than you do cardiovascular. Again, you still want to do, it's a balanced approach. You still want to do cardiovascular work. You still want to have, a healthy heart and cardiovascular system, because that also obviously is increased longevity. But at the same time, the balance of resistance training and cardiovascular work seems to be the best approach to living longer, keeping the weight off, and sustainable goals that you can accomplish.
I think it's the both thing. Do you mean, like, why does it have to be one or the other? And I think the thing that I've come to realize with myself, and obviously with the people that I work with, they help each other out. So, the more muscle you have, the stronger you are whenever you're doing cardio, whether it's cycling or running or swimming or insert whatever cardio is you're doing. If you have more muscle, you will have more endurance. You have more strength to do those things at a better rate or higher capacity. And then the flip side of that, the better you are, or the more capacity you have from a cardio side, the better your sessions will be. And I think, I'm not going to say, I think it was potentially James or potentially Callum. They talk about like the benefits of doing cardio to allow your recovery times between sets to improve. So as I said, I think I said this last week with my new training block, the rest periods are much shorter. So it's like 30 seconds or 40 seconds, which is not a lot of time by the time you stop the set and like look and figured out what you're doing and then go, shit, right, time to go again. But I've noticed the benefits of, because I have the cardio and like I'm sort of good to go. So it's like being able to sort of elevate your heart rate and bring it back down and then be good to go again. So I definitely think the having both as a part of it. And I think even a lot of my clients that are moving into a surplus sort of expect that they're just going to like not have to do cardio, which isn't the case. I would always keep that in for those reasons, to make sure that like, okay, yeah, we want to get big and we want to get jacked, but we don't want to be like out of breath by the time we get up to the top of the stairs. The other thing, and this is something I actually observed this morning. So I went to get my blood work done in the like village, I guess it is, close to me. And it's like, the girl could look out the window, just like, that's the post office. You need to go and post it. I'm like, right, cool, perfect. Into the post office, and there's this woman who must be like 80 and like just struggling to do things because she just doesn't have a lot of muscle mass, as you can imagine. And then I come out and there's like a woman walking up the street, same idea, like struggling to really walk up the street. She was a bit younger, but I'm like, that, I don't want to say it's my fear, because maybe that's not fair, but I'm very much conscious of like, I want to still be as functional as I can be in 40 years time or 50 years time. And I want to do everything that I can now to accommodate that. And that's not necessarily, yes, okay, while I do want to get bigger and whatever else, but not to the point where I'm bigger and I'm completely useless, that I'll be useless in the future. So making sure that I'm like thinking about being functionally fit as well as strong, and having the capacity to move my body, lift things, and like be able to do pretty much anything that I want to in those future years.
Yeah. And that's, I think that goes back to the goal-centric area of what we talk about here, right? Our goals we have to look at are long-term. How we get there, though, is little things that we chip away short-term wise. And, I went ahead on a couple of studies that just got released. One was actually just recently in 2023. And it was a study out of nature.com. And they analyzed over like 21,000 different data points, including, double-blind placebo studies, controlled placebo studies, as well as a number of other ones. And the purpose of this specific study was to determine whether or not just doing resistance training had any impact on overall blood pressure or overall heart or cardiovascular health. And it's an extremely extensive study. I think it's like 300 pages. They have like charts and diagrams. I got lost. Like,
so we're gonna read it all word for word right now.
17-hour podcast. But basically, in the conclusion, the present data suggests that strength training performed with moderate to vigorous load intensity 2 or 3 days a week, performed for at least 8 weeks, is a good strategy to decrease blood pressure in hypertensive individuals. So showing direct correlation to weight training impact on reduction of blood pressure, i.e. cardiovascular, right? So, you always think of resistance training as just being something that's going to be, skeletal, bone density, muscle mass, those types of things. But you don't necessarily correlate that to having a direct impact on blood pressure or cardiovascular health. And I think it shows that, even the type of training that you do is important. So if you're doing higher volume, shorter periods of time, and much more higher heart rate, you're going to get that same type of experience of cardiovascular work and muscle hypertrophy, as you're going through and doing these exercises. So if you have an hour-long block and you're breaking it down in the sense of, your rest, your time between rest is maybe only, 20 to 30 seconds between sets, you're going to be sweating, you're going to be, killing it. You're going to be super, your heart rate's going to be extremely elevated and high, and you're going to be able to do a lot of things. Plus, if you do finisher sets that are, burpees or push-ups and other things. Ben does not like burpees.
All right. So hold on. Whenever we're building out your new training block, you want me to all I'm hearing is the next training block you build, put burpees at the end. I think that's pretty much what I heard.
The problem though is I have this like sign when you first walk in. The first thing it says is no burpees. I can't violate the gym rules, even though I own a gym. So
make the rules.
It also says no hip thrusters, just so you know.
Okay.
They actually had hip thrusters at Orange Theory today. And I did not do hip thrusters. I did dumbbell deadlifts. So Romanian deadlifts. So, so that was a good study. And then, a second study that came out in 2022 was basically an independent joint association of weightlifting and aerobic activity with all-cause cardiovascular disease and cancer mortality in prostate, lung, colorectal, and ovarian cancer screening trials. So they basically looked at the different methods of using weightlifting and aerobic exercise together to see how type of impact that had, as well as just weight training's ability to help an individual manage weight, blood sugar, cholesterol, all of which were elevated prior to these individuals starting the study, all of which saw a substantial reduction just specifically weight training alone, which would increase, obviously, longevity, your ability to live longer, as well as your chance of dying early. So again, the studies are out there showing how effective resistance training is to help you out longevity wise. The problem is that the fads that you see online are all about cardiovascular, right? Hitting a bike or whatever. It's not to say that hitting a bike is bad. That's great cardiovascular work. And if you look at something like a rower, for example, rower is almost a full body exercise. I mean, you're using your legs, you're using your glutes, your hammies, your quads, you're using your back, you're using your biceps and triceps, you're using your whole body basically to do a rower. So you're getting a muscular workout when you're doing those types of full body exercises. But at the same time, you have to look at what are my goals? What are my objectives? Putting on a little bit of muscle mass isn't going to be a bad thing, both for men and women, as you start to go through this and allow you to get to the desired body type or figure, as well as the objectives of health that you want to go to. Cardiovascular isn't, direct cardiovascular work isn't absolutely necessary if you're doing that as part of, your weight training or resistance training.
Yeah. Well, I think the thing is
i.e. your engine workouts, Ben.
I mean, engine workouts are effective. That's for sure. They are effective. I think the thing about it is if you're not doing anything, then doing cardio is definitely the step forward, a step forward, or doing weight and resistance training is a step forward. If you have the capacity to do both, then I would always recommend to do both. But we're not saying oh no, don't do cardio. There definitely is obviously the case for that. If that's the only thing that you can get done, then yes, absolutely do it. I think a good sort of side note on this, and obviously I talk to a lot of people, I talk to a lot of clients, and sort of ailments that they have that I know that the things that we do and the things that we talk about will definitely help. Now, again, not doctors, not saying that this is the fix for any sort of health issues, but things that I see time and time again are, pre-diabetic or high blood pressure or sleep apnea, things like that. Now, I guess if we speaking of Alex Hormozi, like thinking about how you sort of back the things up that you talk about, or how you have confidence in the product that you're selling, or confidence in the thing that you're talking about, is the undeniable stack of evidence. So like having clients in the past that have improved their markers whenever it comes to those things by the things that we're doing, whether it's just through output and that has improved them, or it's just through weight loss and that's the thing that improved them. Everything that we're talking about and everything that we're teaching has the potential to improve those things. So I had a conversation recently, I think it was on Friday. I was kind of talking about how they have high blood pressure and they want to basically eventually come off of medication. And I'm like, look, I'm not saying that this thing that we're going to do is going to completely allow that or totally fix it, but I have a lot of evidence of clients previously that have seen signs of improvement and have actually been able to reduce and eventually come off blood pressure medication, for example. So knowing that everything that we're doing here, whether it is the cardio side or the weightlifting side or the nutrition side or the just generally looking after yourself side, I think it's the understanding that it's potentially not just one piece of the puzzle, it's the entire puzzle together. And I think every time that we talk about something, or every time I have a conversation, how it's all linked and how all of these pieces fit together is probably the most important part. It's not that this one thing that we're talking about, like red light therapy, is going to be the things that completely changes your life. It's like if you do some level of cardio and if you do some level of weight and resistance training and you can look after your food and you manage your recovery and your sleep and everything else, it's those things combined are the things that can improve your health, the quality of your life, improve on any sort of issues or ailments that you have that you're potentially taking medication for or what.
Yeah, and hitting the aspect of women specifically, weight training, there's a lot of great data on resistance training and the benefits for that for pre and post menopause. So when you look at some of the major issues that you start to run into from a menopause perspective, osteoporosis being one of those, or the loss of bone mass, and fragility is typically one of the leading indicators of longevity. So they always say grip strength being a leading indicator on longevity of life, based on people falling and being able to pick themselves up and everything else. And what they've shown through multiple studies is by doing keeping weight resistance training pre and post, even if you're just starting off post menopause, your resistance training aspects are super important to maintain and grow bone density and keep muscle mass as you get older. So there's a study out of Science Direct, specifically talking about mitigating factors for pre and post menopause directly through resistance training and regular exercise, showing overall health and well-being, longevity aspects to that for pre and post menopause. There's study after study after study, metabolism boosting, overall mood. They did some studies on mood for pre and post menopause patients that were going through those areas, and resistance training having a major impact positivity wise on mood. And there was just a really great podcast from Dr. Attia. By the way, Dr. Attia has been great lately. He hasn't done the double click thing. I think it was only a couple episodes.
I've been listening to his
been
listening to his book, and I was like, I wonder, does he double click in the book?
Which that hadn't listened to prior ones. I have a trigger word, which is I'm going to double click on that. And he had started using that, so I stopped listening to his podcast for a little bit as he went through his little thing there. But
one thing actually that I think is important that potentially we overlook is good resources for studies. Do you mean, like, obviously the fucking internet is a shit show? Like, good resources to actually go and find studies that are useful, because there was a bit of conversation going on in the chat recently about a study for this and a study for that. And I'm like, I'm pretty confident that if you wanted to go and find a study to back up something you're saying, you could find the study in some way, shape, or form, but is it actually worthwhile and is it useful? So good resources are good places to go for studies. And from my experience, I think it's almost like a skill that you have to learn to actually be able to read them. Like you can't just click on and understand what is going on if you haven't spent time actually trying to sort of dissect and get into studies and what they're about.
Yeah, for me, what I look at is one, who do some of the not peers, I'm not peers with any of these in the industry, but who are the people that I trust in this industry? Like obviously Huberman and Attia and Lane Norton, those folks. Who do they kind of focus on as far as studies? there's some really great, studies. Most of them actually go through NIH, military, the National Institute of Health. And there's thousands and thousands and millions of studies posted on there through NIH that a lot of peer review evaluation, even both private and public, go through directly with NIH. So some good studies there. Nature.com has a ton. Live Science has a lot. There's quite a bit. I mean, you see them through, published through MIT. You see them published through, U.S. Department of Health and Human Services. So that's the NIH. MIT's got some good ones. Stanford has a lot of good public data on research. Harvard University, American Institute for Research, Johns Hopkins is another big one. So you see these different institutions that are pretty well reputable. But I definitely try to listen to the experts in this field and where they kind of get their data from, and then what they look for, I think, is the most important one. So you have to look at the studies that they're talking about, and you really have to extrapolate the meaning of what they're saying, because a lot of times, a study is very complex and the devil is in the details. So, if I have trouble understanding it, I try to find somebody that I trust, a doctor that is well known in their field, that kind of breaks it down of what that study actually means, so that I can at least start to understand some of the science behind it. That's kind of my thought process as I've gone through a lot of these. But they just had, Dr. Attia just had Dr. Joanne Manson on, and she is like the leading researcher on women's health. Like there's nobody like her in this world that has ever existed. She has the most amount of publications that have been cited in others. So there's like a ranking of like where you are, and she's like the best by like a billion, like she's like way up there in like the universe of being like one of the top leading researchers. So she's like the expert in women's health. And it's a really good podcast if you haven't had a chance to listen to it, especially for women. And if you're interested, guys out there listening to it for your wives, these are great things that you can give from a tip perspective. But this was from Dr. Attia, The Drive. It's free on Spotify and other platforms. But it was hormone replacement therapy and the Women's Health Initiative, examining the results and link to breast cancer and weighing the risk versus reward on HRT. And this is a very common misconception, just like resistance training is. And I thought this was very interesting. So I talked to somebody that is, a close relative of mine in my family, and I was talking to him about what I was doing for hormone replacement therapy, most specifically testosterone replacement therapy. And I said you should take a look at hormone replacement therapy, because she was right around the menopause time frame. And she said, "Oh no, I've heard about that. It gives you cancer." And I was like, "Well, yes, that is what a lot of people will think, but it's not actually what ended up happening." And what was actually shown. So she actually broke a lot of this down, and she was actually the one that did the studies on this. And it was basically a study that was done a long time ago, and it was basically on the effects of estrogen replacement in women, and they were using a certain type of estrogen it was like basically like a synthesized version of estrogen that was not great for women. And what they found is that by using different estrogen coupled with progestin, those two combined together basically create a recipe for an amazing type of benefit for women pre and post menopause, to reduce the impact of menopause itself, as well as increase potential longevity aspects. The problem is that double-blind placebo studies in this type of area, especially for humans and women, and being consistent with it, is very difficult to do. But a lot of the early data and what we've seen, especially in the past 5 years, with HRT becoming extremely paramount to a lot of people, is that it does have a major impact in overall health and longevity and reduction in cancer type of efforts. So it was very interesting to see. The misconception is that it increases cancer, but it didn't actually increase cancer. So it's basically statistically irrelevant. The two differences with estrogen and without from a hormone replacement therapy, it was statistically irrelevant. It was like a 0.3 percentile off or something like that. But yet the headlines always said, estrogen creates, cancer. And the same thing for testosterone, by the way. It said testosterone, increases your ability for cancer. Not true. There's so many studies that have come out since then that's perfectly safe, but also the symptoms that you experience pre and post menopause, estrogen and progestin combined together have an amazing benefit for women, because they're no longer being made by the body after postmenopause. So they have, there's so many things that estrogen and progestin do for your body, and to continue it to be, continue that cycle as you get older is very beneficial for most women. How they feel is most important, obviously, and making you feel good and healthy and ability to continue forward and well as you age. So some big benefits there. I thought it was a really good podcast. Listen to the whole thing. I was actually I was done with it. I think it was like a 2.5 hour long podcast. I was like, it hasn't been 2.5 hours. It's only been like 30 minutes. I learned so much during that one, but it was really good. She is incredible. I mean, the amount of knowledge she has, she was, honestly, I felt like she was schooling Attia a bit, and he's obviously an HRT professional. And she's like, well, yeah, technically, but then you have da 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 da. He's like, oh, okay, well, then he kind of changes the subject. I'm like, kind of schooled you, man. She was great.
I think that especially around that topic, I think that's what I'm saying about how you can find a study to sort of back up whatever the thought process. It generally is, oh no, I can't do that, it gives me cancer, is generally the go-to for everybody because they've read some study or somebody has read study or whatever. So yeah, I think that is what I was touching on. I don't know, it was you that sent me the link, but I don't know if you ever signed up for it. The REP stuff that Layne Norton does is a good resource for. So the REP stands for Research Explained in Practical Summaries. So it's like how they will take the papers and they will take the studies and explain it to you in some way that you can actually understand it. So for anybody who wants to delve a little bit deeper into that, I would recommend. I think it's like $12 or something for the month. They just released the latest one, which is on, does periodization really matter? There's loads there around, will cardio kill your gains, cold water immersion, a hot recovery tool and stuff like that, which is cool. But it's easy to read. It breaks it down and means you don't really need to delve into how to actually be able to understand and read studies. Like I said, I think that's definitely a skill that you do get better at over time. But I remember the first time reading a study being like, what do any of these words mean? I have absolutely no idea. So I know, obviously we talk about studies. I just want to make sure everybody has at least somewhere to go or at least a start point on that for sure. Will you send me the link to that podcast? I'll put it in the show notes for people as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And, I think it's important to note when I had said progestin, that's the synthetic version of progesterone, which is naturally produced in our body, which is typically prescribed as part of the two things to do with estrogen. But I mean, the two hormones combined together reduce hot flashes, night sweats, and other side effects of menopause. Progesterone thins the uterine lining, helping to prevent and development of endometrial cancer, i.e. thus the reduction of cancer itself, not increased amount of cancer. So, keeping the uterine lining thin versus hardened. And that's actually, I think, one of the major issues that came up with the initial studies is that just estrogen alone without progesterone caused the thickening of the uterine lining, which could potentially increase cancer. So they figured out, obviously, the two women hormones that are absolutely needed are progesterone and estrogen as your two main pieces that you supplement with hormone replacement therapy. And that's that's very common. You won't see just estrogen prescribed. You won't see just whatever. It's in combination with progesterone as the main way of doing things. But yeah, it was a great podcast. I'll shoot out to everybody. I'm always learning, about different, obviously women and men are very different in nature. Testosterone being our, primary function there, and then women, progesterone and estrogen. So it was cool. I like that.
Yeah, send it across. Like I said, I'll put it in the show notes for sure. As long as there's no double clicking, then we're good.
There's no double clicking at all on that one. He didn't double click into that. So, but yeah, I mean, and I think that's, kind of the major points to hit on, but all of this leading up into and kind of summarizing, what we're talking about, where we're at, is that resistance training is good. Just doing resistance training, not coupled with cardio, might not be as beneficial. Doing both, very beneficial. Just doing cardio, maybe not as beneficial. So there's these, again, the studies are continue to come out showing more and more support on, I would say, how superior weight and resistance training is to cardiovascular work. And again, I'm not saying one is better than the other than I am saying one is better than the other.
We're not saying that one's better than the other, but we're saying that there's one that is better than
better than the other.
No, I do think it is a both thing. It doesn't need to be one or the other. And anybody, you'll know yourself, like even I will always have a baseline of cardio whenever it comes to clients. We will do a baseline of weight and resistance training, and we will have a baseline of cardio. And exactly like you said, the way that I approach it is we just start to introduce, or at least continue, like a solid, structured, making sure you're progressing weightlifting protocol, along with the cardio on the side of it, until we sort of form the habits and behaviors and get a good solid base of like an understanding of how to train, how to move, what the muscles should feel like, all that sort of stuff. And then that's whenever you can really delve into the fat loss thing. And it's something I've actually, I guess being a little bit more, manage the expectations a little bit more. Like when I'm on an initial call, it's like, don't expect to come into this and just lose 20 pounds in 4 weeks because you've done some juice cleanse before and that's what your experience. Like, it's not going to be like that. There's like steps that we need to go through to sort of, I guess, to build the foundations. And then once we have those solid, it's like, right, now we can really start to play about with things like, what direction do you want to push things in? Do you want to sort of delve a little bit deeper into a deficit, push it a little bit faster, or do you want to sort of move into surplus or whatever it is? But it takes time to build those foundations. And again, like if I'm on a call, I'm like, this, we're in this for a year, like 12 months. It's not like, yeah. In 6 weeks, you'll be good to go. And then that's you set for the rest of your life. So managing expectations for yourself and me managing for clients in terms of like how to process what they should be expecting and things like that. As you've seen in the chat, there's been a lot of new faces and a lot of excited people, and they sort of know what they're getting themselves into. It's cool for me to see, and it's cool for me to see sort of the support that comes. Again, I've said this before, but the support that comes from within the clients in terms of like understanding that the people in there are in there together. So if they need help or whatever else like that, I know it's a bit of a joke around the second interview that Luke and Mike do, but it sort of sets the tone for the group and the weekly calls. But I do think understanding the process, the more people talk, like I've heard endless amounts of people talking, like I can't avoid hearing your name or hearing what you guys are doing, which is obviously exactly what we want. And as that continues to grow, that will continue to grow. So I guess that's a thank you for everybody who's sharing and everybody who's spreading the word. But it's good to sort of see people are coming into it with a realistic expectation, and they don't think they're just going to come like, oh, I thought I could just do 6 weeks and then I'd be good to go. Like they know that there is potentially years and years and years of harmful behaviors and patterns that they have to overcome and sort of reinstill the new habits.
Yeah. And, I think the concept here too is understanding what you're doing. You kind of got to understand how your body works and the best ways that you can move around your ailments. One of the things I wanted to hit on, prior to just kind of closing out the podcast is, there was somebody that had brought up the topic of injuries or chronic, pain and things of that effect. Right. And so, every program isn't designed for everybody, right? It's all different and your goals are different. There's a guy that works here that all he does is powerlifting all day. Right. And that's his goals. His goals is just to lift as heavy, and his training routine is crazy. Right. I mean, he's literally down there for an hour and a half, deadlifting and squatting. That's it. That's his exercise. Right. And he's strong as hell. He's got big muscles. And, it's one of those things that's his jam, right? Whereas you have others that just want to focus, purely on aesthetics and the growth or size of muscles, which are going to be, predominantly higher rep ranges and not as heavy. And so, you kind of have to understand what you're working with, and also the ailments that you have dealing with your own body. A lot of us deal with injuries, obviously, doing anything athletic, whether that's a sport or resistance training or cardio, you're going to have injuries or things that happen that cause you to, I know every time that I start to run at Orange Theory, it feels like every bone in my body's like aching. And then eventually it just goes away and it's back to normal. It's got to kind of grease up the skids on the bones. But, we all have different ailments that hurt us and things that might be historical, things that have happened in the past. And we have to figure out ways to work around that. And that's why, not every single workout program or regimen is good for everybody. Lifting heavy may not be good for everybody, especially if you have, back injuries from the past or things like that. So how do you build a training program that gets you to desired results, but also takes into consideration, potentially chronic pain or things that you're trying to, overcome? And one, I would say and feel free to correct me wrong on this, Ben, but, I think most people that have pain in certain areas is because they haven't built up their body enough yet from a strength perspective to handle that type of load or volume, as well as to kind of move around the ailments that they have. A lot of times, like abs, for example, I know when women give birth, they have a substantial hit to their abs. Their abs basically shrink in size, strength, and everything else, as well as they get, potentially damaged, things like that, obviously C-sections and stuff like that. So the abs for women, and especially posture, become extremely important. You'll see a lot of women that have really bad posture post birth because of the reduction of abs during that period of time. So strengthening your core and your abs so you sit upright and straight. I always get asked, how do you fix your posture? I'm like, well, I lift. That fixes my posture. Like, I used to have horrible posture, by the way. I used to always kind of slump around and have the arch back. And a lot of that was due to, again, not having a strong frame to be able to handle that. So I think you have to look at what your ailments are and trying to build your muscle up from a strength perspective to allow your body to kind of adapt and be stronger so that you're not hurting those areas.
Yeah, I think, I see this all the time. Like, whenever it's your number one, it's not necessarily where you feel the pain is where the problem is. And number two, it's, as you said, it's the everything around it is potentially the issue, like the weak link, like the main focus with anybody, whether they tell me this or not, whenever they start, is strengthening the posterior chain. A lot of people have back problems and sore back and whatever else. And I'm not saying to the extremes, but generally I see people who suffer from back pain if they sit too long or they stand too long or they do something too long. The issue is somewhere along that sort of posterior chain. So whether it's like mid back, lower back, into your glutes, into your hamstrings. And if you think about, not to do like your knee bones connected to your hip bone, like to think about your muscles and how everything's sort of like so closely linked. If there is a weaker part of that, that's potentially where the issue lies. So it could be your hamstring, it could be your glutes, it could be your lower back, it could be somewhere, but where you're feeling that pain necessarily isn't where the problem is. I even had a call with one of the clients earlier on, and he has really bad knee pain. So something we need to take into consideration. But my go-to on that is to strengthen the muscles in his leg to be able to support his knee, so that we're not going to potentially cure it, but we can do our best that it's not under as much pressure, because you have the strength in the muscle to do what is required versus the muscle being weak, the joint being sore. And that's where the problem lies. So how can we sort of fix everything around it to at least alleviate the pain or allow us to do more with that joint or through the joint? Even with your back, like you're a prime example, like your back, whenever we first started, back pain,
always
couldn't do this, couldn't do that, had to readjust everything, move things about. Yeah. And as we sort of said, whenever we decided that the deadlift is going to be your thing, I was like, right, well, we're going to have to get rid of those fucking wagon wheels and lift it from the floor. And I like genuinely, I was like, that's something we're going to have to be conscious of, because for the past 2.5 years, you've lifted elevated. Like, it was probably one of the first things that I told you to do was elevate the
represent block pulls.
Yeah,
I've been doing it the entire time.
Yeah. So it's like,
and then the focus that you gave me on rack pulls, for example, to strengthen my lower back, because that was my area of concern, right? So very controlled, slow movement, building up my lower back. And, over time, I haven't had any back issues whatsoever. I mean, every once in a while, like if I'm doing really heavy, it'll get sore, as in like it's exhausted because I just lifted a shit ton of weight, but it's not hurt, right? And I think that's the key difference there, is that I don't have back pain anymore. Even my shoulder, I would continuously tear, doing bench presses. We worked around that, and, my shoulder is almost stronger now, and I can handle, much higher load. I don't do bench press anymore either, because that's terrible for my shoulders. But those types of things we've been able to work around based on, one, not having the muscle development in those areas and building those up. And two, being able to ensure that I don't have those injuries again. I mean, I used to get really bad sciatica because my back would be killing me. So my back would be killing me, and then it would cause like my sciatica nerve around the sides of my legs to hurt. And so like my left side would start to hurt, and then I'd start to baby my left side. So my right side would then start to hurt. So I'd have sciatica on both sides. Then my right back would start to hurt. It was like a total shit show. I couldn't do anything. I was like an old man walking around that I couldn't, I was like, it didn't even look like I lifted. I was just like this hurts so much. I'm taking the day off. But I haven't had that in almost 1.5 years, since we've been doing this. So, again, I think focusing very heavily on the areas that you can do, building those up, and recognizing where you have, problems at, starting to build those up slowly, making sure there's no pain, but also making sure you engage those muscles and build those up, because it'll be important, down the road as you start to progress in your resistance training.
Yeah. And I think the big point in that is not to avoid it. So like so many people are like, oh, I can't do this because bench press, I can't do that because I have a sore shoulder. I'm like, okay, well, nothing, you're going to improve. You're not going to get better. You're not going to get stronger if you just avoid any pressing movement. Like, there are ways around it. So like, work out where it's sore, why it's sore, what's causing the pain, and the areas around that, or what you need to do to strengthen that, so you can potentially do some variation of whatever the movement is. It doesn't mean you need to do bench press with a barbell. That just doesn't work for me. It doesn't work for a lot of people, but having the understanding of that's not the only way to do it, or it's not the only way to target the muscle, or it's not the only way to sort of, I guess, create a stimulus in the muscle that will allow it to improve, or you to strengthen around it to then potentially down the line be able to do more with it.
Oh, I hit the mute button the wrong time. I was actually not muted and then I hit mute. Yep, that makes sense. So listen, summarize TLDR of all this. Resistance training is the best ever.
That's it. Full stop.
That's all you should focus on. Just kidding, obviously. A balanced approach to all of this is the most important, right? And again, you can do cardio weightlifting. Higher reps, shorter time periods in between sets. Your ability to do supersets. Hitting different muscle groups at a time. All of those can continuously keep your heart rate up from a cardiovascular perspective, as well as other areas. And if you're getting out, getting movement, if you're just getting steps in, things like that, your blood work's going to definitely show the improvements there. You're going to be doing cardiovascular work because you're moving your body, your blood's pumping, your heart's moving. Those are all the things that we want to get from a desired perspective. But resistance training shouldn't be as taboo as it is. It got a bad rap because of all the bodybuilding that happened in the kind of the golden bodybuilding era, and everybody got freaked out that these people were dying from cardiovascular issues because they were obviously doing too much stuff that was causing cardiovascular issues. And doing a balanced approach to everything definitely happens to be one of the best approaches that you can do from longevity, overall health, fitness goals, weight loss, everything else. So
agree.
That's it.
It's
a good podcast, man.
Yeah, it was. Yeah. Hopefully everybody agrees with us.
Well, if they don't, you're wrong, but I'm just kidding. We're always obviously open to different perspectives here, but at the end of the day, you can take that life lesson in life that anything balanced is probably going to be a better approach to something than going extreme in one way or the other. So,
I think it's the extremes. It's not living in the extremes. Yes. Like even down to the dieting extreme where everybody's like, "Oh, you're going to make me eat chicken, broccoli, and rice." I'm like, no, I'm not. And it's like you will still be able to insert whatever your favorite food is here. So knowing that you don't have to do things in an extreme and building something out that is something that you can live a quote unquote normal, longer, healthier, better life.
And I wish broccoli and rice didn't have broccoli, rice, and chicken have such a bad rap, because I can eat that all day long, man. I love chicken, rice.
It's chicken, broccoli, and rice has a bad rap, but you eat broccoli, rice, and chicken, which is totally different. So
yeah, completely different.
Completely different.
Yeah.
So you're just eating it in the wrong order.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, if you eat it in a different order, it's perfectly fine. So
right. Thanks everybody for listening. We're going to talk about the changes that we're going to make soon, I hope. Yeah. Once you and I talk about them, I guess.
We got to figure out. Do you like what I sent initially? So we got to talk about that. But
just everybody know that we're going to make some changes soon, and that's it.
Good changes.
Yes, good changes. Yeah. I'm going to be on the other side. We're going to swap sides. Right.
That sounds good. Well, thanks everybody.
Thanks everybody for listening. See you next week.